To the millions of people who have been entertained and inspired by Magnificent Obsession, White Banners, Disputed Passage, The Robe, and other famous books by Lloyd C. Douglas, we respectfully submit this series.
Kathy and I have just returned from Center City, which we've not visited for many years. The occasion was the dedication of the Mary Carlton Chapel, and the vivid memories aroused by the ceremonies have moved me to record the story of Mary's part in our lives. It began one evening when Mary and her husband, the Reverend Robert Carlton, were guests in my home.
Isn't it time that you said goodnight?
Your bed's turned down, it's all ready.
But, Daddy, you said...
I said you could sit next to Mary, and you have. Now, you say goodnight.
Good night, Reverend Carlton.
Good night, Kathy.
Good night, Mary.
Good night.
Please, could you take me to my room?
What she wishes.
You do, don't you, Mary?
Certainly. Come on.
Good night, Francis. Well, let's go in where we can stretch out a bit.
Whatever you wish, Doctor.
Mary certainly captured Kathy's heart.
She does seem to understand children.
She does all right with the adults, too. We were certainly singing her praises at the Church Board of Governors meeting last night. George Atkins said it's remarkable what she's done with the Sunday school in the short 2 months that you've been here.
Yeah, she's an excellent teacher. At the Sunday school level.
I'll serve it, Mrs. Grady.
Yes, Doctor.
Well, thank you for a very fine dinner.
Oh.
Well, Reverend, what are you planning to give us for a sermon tomorrow? Cream? Sugar? Oh, I'm not referring to the sermon.
Well, you'd better not be. I'll have it back, please. Thank you. Oh, you were asking about my sermon tomorrow, Doctor. Well, I plan to continue my critical comparison of the various texts and translations of the Old Testament's conception of creation. It's an adventure in religious scholarship, Doctor. Truly exciting.
Yes, it must be. To a scholar.
Well, it should be for everyone. And I plan to make it so for my congregation. You see, Doctor, church is not a place for daydreams. It's a place where people must be forced into hard, exact thinking about their religious beliefs.
Isn't there something about resting on the seventh day?
Oh, from the mundane things, yes. But not from the obligation to bring the best powers of one's mind to the comprehension of God. Now, surely, you as a doctor must be in sympathy with the idea of giving religion the same intellectual eminence that science enjoys.
It's been my experience that most scientists find a need for a few unscientific beliefs.
Oh, I'm sorry to find you in disagreement with me, Doctor.
Oh, I'm not in disagreement. I'm merely registering a personal preference for the simple approach to religion.
Oh, I know. My way is not the fashionable way. Sugarcoat the pill, keep it simple, borrow all the tricks of the theater if need be, but pack them in that church on Sunday morning. Well, Doctor, that is not religion to me.
Well, even a doctor has to cultivate a bedside manner to explain medical problems in everyday terms.
Daddy! Daddy!
Excuse me. I'll only be a minute. Kathy wants her goodnight kiss.
Can I get you anything, Reverend Carlton?
No, thank you. I'm quite comfortable.
Reverend, I wonder if you'd mind if I ask for a bit of advice.
Well, by all means, please do.
Well, now, recently, Kathy has been very interested in Bible stories. And I've been reading her the one about the Red Sea parting to let Moses and the Israelites get away from Pharaoh's men.
Oh, that's an admirable piece of writing. Admirable.
Yes, but you know, she doesn't understand how the Red Sea could part and let Moses go through. and then come together again and drown Pharaoh's army. And you know, quite frankly, she stumped me. I wonder if you could tell me how I could explain it to her.
Why, of course, Mrs. Grady, of course. As you know, the account is to be found in Exodus. Now, according to some scholars, the event took place as early as 15th century B.C., during the reign of Pharaoh Ptolemy III.
Ptolemy III?
Exactly. Oh, it is wholly improbable that the Exodus could have taken place as late as Ramesses II.
Well, that's very interesting. But what about the Red Sea?
Oh, I'm coming to that. You know, of course.
Yes, again, Daddy.
Now, you know I'm no good at guessing. You tell me.
You tell me, Mary.
Well, 3 weeks from today, I'm having a party for Kathy's Sunday school class. And because she's the best student in the class, Kathy's to be guest of honor.
Well.
Now, in evaluating these many different accounts, one must take into consideration the several different points of view. One may take the scientific point of view, having to do with the proximity of Venus to the Earth at that time, and that planet's unique effect upon tidal cycles. Or we may examine the story as a simple parable, illustrating the power of prayer. Or we may even consider the fact that legends invariably grow up around all great men, and Moses was no exception.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I think I see.
Not at all, Mrs. Grady. Glad to be of assistance.
How about a good night kiss? We can't let the Reverend Carlton wait any longer. Your turn.
Good night.
Good night, Princess.
Right.
Sit down, Mary. I'm sorry to take so long, Reverend.
Kathy had to have time to settle down into her own world after venturing into ours.
Well, it was quite all right. As a matter of fact, I was able to explain a rather difficult biblical passage to Mrs. Grady.
Oh?
Seems Kathy's been asking Mrs. Grady questions she couldn't answer.
Yes, ever since Mary's been here, Kathy's taken a keen interest in the Bible.
Well, children like Kathy are receptive to knowledge. Given the proper basis in Sunday school, they'll be able to make the most of adult Bible classes, and then in a few years, form the nucleus of a superior congregation.
Well, Bob doesn't mean that he isn't very happy with the present group.
One works with the material at hand. The important thing is not to be tempted to lower standards.
What Bob really means is that you must lead people gradually along the path to learning.
Oh, no, dear, I mean nothing of the sort. I mean that if standards are kept high, people will have to measure up.
Well, I hope that doesn't eliminate me from the congregation. Let me give you some more coffee, Mary.
Thank you.
Well, Atkins, what did you think of the sermon?
Well, maybe I was tuned in on the wrong wavelength, but I will say one thing. He's got a fine baritone voice.
And you, Hudson?
I'm still working on it.
Well, when you get it figured out, give me a ring. Good day.
Doc, Kathy?
Good day.
Hi, Kathy. I'm glad
good
you
morning,
came for
Doctor.
church too this morning. Good morning, Wayne.
Hello, Mary.
I trust you followed my sermon this morning.
Substantially. At least I was working on it.
Oh, fine. As long as one person understands. In time, others will follow.
Reverend Carlton, you know an awful lot of big words, don't you?
Well, I suppose I do.
But that's all right. Mary can always explain them to Daddy and me.
Oh, I don't know enough to teach the grown-ups.
We better get home, Kathy. Bye.
Bye.
How is she, Doctor?
Get an ambulance fast.
I want Daddy.
Oh, there's nothing to be scared of. You're all right except for a few bruises.
But I'm scared.
Now, Daddy can't come now. He's taking care of Mrs. Carlton.
Daddy will make her well.
Get her ready for surgery.
Dr. Hudson, just how serious is it?
I need your permission to operate.
Well, I'll be guided by you in this matter, Doctor. If you want to call in anyone for consultation. But of course, this is your specialty.
I'm afraid there's severe cranial damage. I may not be able to save her life. And even if I do, recovery may not be complete.
All that matters is her life, Doctor.
I'll do everything I can.
There's a place to sit at the end of the hall.
If you don't mind, I'd rather stay here.
I'm sorry. I did everything I could. Everything.
I know, Doctor.
Daddy? Is she all right?
Doctor.
What's the matter with Mary?
I think I'll go home now.
Let me take you.
No, I'll be all right. Thank you.
The weeks passed. Kathy made a kind of numb adjustment to Mary's death. But with Carlton, time served only to make him more aloof, more remote from his fellow men, and particularly his congregation.
We think we ought to start looking for a new man.
I might add, the rest of the board members are in agreement with us. We'd like the decision to be unanimous, Wayne.
Carlton's a good, sincere man. And you can't overlook what Mary did for the Sunday school.
Oh, of course, we realize your position in this, Wayne.
Let's omit the personal references, George. Why don't you give the man a decent interval of time?
It'll take time to find the right man, Wayne. If in the meantime Carlton surprises us all, I'll be the first one to suggest his retention.
Well, since I'm the lone dissenter, I guess there's not much I can do. Except hope that he'll find a place where there's a little more humanity. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night, Wayne.
Good night, Wayne.
Doctor, it sounds like she's having a nightmare.
Daddy!
I'm right here, darling. So is Mrs. Grady. You just had a bad dream, that's all.
Bad dream.
You're awake now, dear, right in your own room. Nothing can hurt you. Doctor, what did I say?
Look, it's all right, darling. Tell me about it. What did you dream that was so bad?
A car was coming. I heard Mary.
Oh, you didn't hurt Mary. You wouldn't harm people you love, isn't that right? You go on to bed, Mrs. Grady. I'll stay here.
Call me if you need me, Doctor.
I'm afraid to go to sleep. I'll dream about Reverend Carlton coming to get me.
Well, now, Reverend Carlton wouldn't harm you.
He hates me.
Nonsense. Of course he doesn't hate you. That's just part of your bad dream. Now, you go down back to sleep. But Daddy's going to stay right here. Eat your breakfast, Princess.
I'm not going to school.
Don't you feel well?
I'm never going to that school again.
Well, it's a pretty comprehensive statement. I thought you liked your teacher.
I do.
You getting along all right with your studies?
Yes.
Well, what is it then?
Georgie Atkins and Linda Harvey.
I thought you got along fine with them.
They say it's my fault. They say it every day. And they laugh when it makes
Now,
me cry.
hold on, Princess. What's supposed to be your fault?
Mary. They say I made her die. Did I, Daddy?
Certainly not.
And Reverend Carlton doesn't think so?
Of course not.
You positive?
I'm positive. Look, honey, we'll straighten this out somehow. Maybe it'd be a good idea for you to stay home today. You could help Mrs. Grady out around the house. Would you like that?
Sure.
All right, you finish your breakfast.
Could I speak to Dr. Hudson, please?
Unfortunately, the child's developed a deep-rooted feeling of guilt. Her schoolmates, Georgie Atkins and Linda Harvey, Georgie in particular, have been heckling her, accusing her of Mary's death. It's got so bad that she's even refusing to go to school now. She has frequent nightmares in which she is the killer, to put it bluntly.
Oh, this is dreadful.
She dreams that you hate her.
So that's why she came here today.
Kathy came here?
Yes. While I was out this afternoon, that's why I phoned you. She left this on that bouquet of flowers and rushed out the back way.
Well, this bears me out. You're the only one that can convince her that you don't hate her. Relieve her of this feeling of guilt.
Doctor, I'm afraid I couldn't help her even if I tried.
That's all I'm asking you to do is try.
May I remind you, I'm about to be relieved of my ministry because my congregation can't understand me and I can't understand them.
Yes, I know all about that.
And yet you expect me to help a child?
I'm still asking you to try.
Very well. Have you any suggestions as to procedure?
Well, you could meet her at home or at Sunday school. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do or say, that's up to you.
Hudson, if I remember correctly, Mary had planned a party for the Sunday school class. It was to take place this Sunday. Could we have that party at your house?
Of course, if you feel that you're up to it.
I must be up to it. It's a monstrous thing they've done to this child.
All right, I'll tell Mrs. Grady.
Hello, Kathy. Hi. Hi. Kathy, the killer.
Kathy. Pay no attention to him, Kathy.
But he keeps saying it. Linda does too sometimes.
Kathy, do they know more about what happened than I?
No.
Well, now listen to me carefully. You had nothing to do with it.
Then why does Georgie keep saying it was me?
Well, the world is full of Georgies, of all ages and sizes. And the only thing we can do is pray for them and hope they change.
But there's only one Georgie.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of people like Georgie.
Like Linda, too?
But, Kathy, you had nothing to do with what happened to Mary. Any more than I did, or your father did, or anyone else we know. To put it simply, her work here was finished, Kathy. God needed her. And in taking her, graciously let her do one last bit of good. And now, shall we go inside?
Here, where's that? Oh, you do look funny. And a hat for... Oh, come in, Reverend Carlton. We're going to play some guessing games. We want you to award the prizes.
Well, we'll have the games later, Mrs. Grady. It's been a long time since I spoke to a Sunday school class. I think I'd like to tell them a story.
Oh, did you hear that, children? Go on, sit down. The Reverend's going to tell us a story. There you go. Come on, baby. Come on, don't get squashed. There we go. Now, listen.
Now, how many of you know the story of Job?
I do.
Well, Job lived a long, long time ago. Before the time of Jesus. Linda, do you recall what kind of man Job was?
Well, he wore a robe, I guess, and sandals and stuff.
Georgie?
He was a businessman, like my pop.
Today we'd call him a cattleman farmer. Boy, he was very wealthy. He was a respected man of the community, and God had blessed him with a wonderful family. Everything was wonderful. For a while. And then suddenly trouble came. Job lost all his money, and all his sons, and all his daughters. Oh, yes, and I forgot to tell you, he also had 3 friends. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. You know, I've always suspected that they were a little envious of Job, and they weren't too sorry to find him in trouble. Gave him an opportunity to overwhelm Job with a lot of free advice.
Job lost all his money, and those men came to laugh at him?
Oh, no, not exactly, Georgie. They were religious men. But they thought that Job had done something bad, and God was punishing him by taking away all his possessions. So they said that Job should get down on his knees and beg for mercy. Say that he was sorry for being a miserable sinner.
Did he? If he was smart, he did. But he didn't do wrong.
That's right, Kathy. He refused. And he refused to blame God for his troubles. But still, the 3 friends kept insisting that Job was a bad man and that he better own up to it if he knew what was good for him.
They don't sound like friends to me.
Well, Linda, are you a friend of Kathy's?
Yeah?
What about you, Georgie?
I guess so. Sure.
Well, do friends go around saying things about each other that aren't true?
I didn't mean any harm, Reverend Carlton.
Then why did you make Kathy's life miserable? Do you know what happens to people who do things like that?
I won't do it again. Honest, I won't.
And you, Linda? Would you like Kathy to call you a killer?
No, sir.
Oh, very well. Now, you think about what you've done. It's a terrible thing. Oh, would you like to know what happened to Job's friends? Well, when God heard the whole story, he was very angry. He threatened to mete out dire punishment to them. Well, they begged for mercy. But it was too late. And do you know what saved them? Job's prayers.
You mean Job prayed for them after what they did?
And that's right, Georgie. That's exactly what he did. And as a reward, God gave Job back twice the wealth he had before and twice as many children. Thank you, Mrs. Grady. Now you may have your games if you wish. Oh, Mrs. Grady, do you remember you asked me a question about Moses and the parting of the Red Sea?
Oh, yes, Reverend.
Well, I think I have your answer. All things are possible if you put your trust in God. Well, looks like we have another guest.
Am I in time for refreshments?
Daddy! You can play games with us. We have prizes.
Why? What do you say, Princess? Do you think we can fix it so Reverend Carlton wins a prize, too?
That children's Sunday school party became the turning point in Bob Carlton's life. and was the prelude to years of devotion to our community. By focusing his attention on Kathy and her problem, he achieved a catharsis of his personal grief and fulfilled the promise, "Thy Father, which seeth in secret, shall reward thee openly."